Hello, beautiful souls, and welcome back to the 39th episode of the Perfectly Imperfect Spiritual Podcast. I'm your host, Marta, and I'm truly honored to welcome today's guest, someone whose work has moved me deeply, whose voice carries such softness and strength, and whose teachings have touched thousands of hearts around the world. Our guest today is Asha Frost. Asha is an Indigenous medicine woman and the international best-selling author of You Are the Medicine and the Sacred Medicine Oracle. She has guided thousands of people through profound and lasting transformation as a healer, homeopath, and ceremonial guide, and has become a prominent speaker in the field of Indigenous healing, garnering recognition on both local and international platforms. Asha holds membership at Chippewas of Nawash First Nation and is a mama of two boys with whom she walks gently upon the earth. She loves sharing her medicine in powerful ways through ceremonies, teachings, and speaking events. Through this work, she loves seeing people reclaim their roots, find their healing wisdom, and rise into their power. Welcome, Asha, to the podcast. I am so grateful you've said yes to being here.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. I'm curious. Well, I don't think our human in our when we talk about our human experience, there is ever a beginning, but can we try and start? Would you be able to share with the viewers, listeners, how did your journey as a medicine woman and healer begin? And in what ways has your connection to your ancestry and your community shaped the work you do today?
Yeah, I think the first memories I have was being a really vivid dreamer as a child. As a young child, I dreamt a lot, and I would tell my mom, "Guess what I imagined last night?" And they were really vivid, and I would start to have some spirits come to visit me in my room, and I didn't know at the time who they were until I got sick at 17. I was diagnosed with lupus, which is an autoimmune condition. And I started seeing some healers, and it was in that process of being held in sacred space and then journeying and receiving some intuitive guidance that I realized, oh, those were my ancestors the whole time, trying to speak to me, trying to awaken something within me, trying to remind me that I'm not alone. So it was actually a bit of a fearful experience when I was younger because I didn't know who was showing up, and I didn't know that this
Mm-hmm.
was something that I was supposed to pay attention to. So that was a little bit of that entry into the spirit world, of a deeper connection to my ancestors. And really it just has expanded since then in trying to heal myself and trying to come home to who I am, with this illness that I've been walking with. And then it's awakened something within me to be the healer that I am in the world.
Beautiful. Would you be able to share a little bit about the right teachers, mentors, any spiritual influences that appeared on your path in the right timing? Anyone who helped you to remember, reclaim, or root you, what you've been beautifully saying, into your own medicine?
Yeah, there have been a lot of teachers. I would say first and foremost, my clients that I shared space with for 15 years as a homeopath, they were probably my biggest teachers because I learned with them, right? Like I always tell people when I'm doing mentorship, like doing the thing is really what stretches you, it grows you, and it's the teacher for you. You learn through your mistakes, you learn through your relationships, you just learn in that way. So they're really my biggest teachers. I saw thousands of people in my private practice, and they taught me so much about who I am really as the healer that I am and the space that I hold. I would say one of the biggest teachers I want to name is David Bedrick. He's a therapist, but he speaks a lot about unshaming. And I think that because of my history and intergenerational trauma and harm, there's been a lot of internal criticism and shame that I've held in my
Mm-hmm.
bones. And working with him really helped me to come be softer with myself and be more compassionate with myself. And that ultimately has helped me to heal parts of walking with lupus in the world. in big ways. So I know everybody thinks sometimes, Indigenous people think, or people think of Indigenous people, oh, there's all these elders that you're surrounded with. Sadly, that wasn't my experience because we had experienced so much colonization and so much separation and so much fracturing that I had to find my eldership in other ways. So sometimes that was through the spirit world and dreaming, and sometimes that was through a white male therapist that was probably the last person that people would expect to be one of
Mm,
my mentors, but he was. So that's the person I'd love to name because he really impacted my
mm.
life.
Thank you. And I know I'll be asking you today to share a little bit more about your healing journey, but I would like to start or continue this conversation. I know in your book you shared that profound vision that you got from spirit about the moment where you received that image visualization of yourself. Was it cloaked in rainbow colors and surrounded by spirit children, and then with the thousands of beats
Yeah.
really falling? And that moment came, I think you shared before you became a mom, a mother, yet it revealed a really deep soul mission. Would you be willing to share that story with us?
Yeah, that was during I was taking some shamanic training and we were doing a destiny retrieval. And it was so clear. It was before I was a mother. It was so clear. I was standing in this rainbow skirt. It was actually before I even received my spirit name, Healing Rainbow Woman. I was standing in this ribbon skirt, this colorful rainbow skirt, and I was standing in front of all these children. They were on the earth, and they were all just watching me. And at the time, I'd done a couple of school visits and sharing teachings in that
Mm-hmm.
way, but it wasn't really a rooted part of my path. But it was so clear. And I think I've come to know that part of my destiny is mothering. That's part of my medicine, whether
Mm,
that's with my children or in the world. Somebody asked me the other day, how do you balance mothering in your business? And I think it's like being rooted in the fact that that is my purpose, whether that's with people on a global scale or my children
mm-hmm.
in my home. Mothering is a huge part. But there was something about the children that I've understood now that it's about the 7 generations that my work is rippling out. Maybe I won't see it in this lifetime, but I'm hoping that it'll ripple out for those 7 generations to come. And I think that that's what the children represented.
Thank you. Would you be able to mention a little bit about how you hold space for the voices of the children who were lost in the residential schools, the ones whose remains were found in mass graves? I really feel like we should start that conversation before we move on to speaking about the beautiful teachings in your book, because I know your work has carried some of those children through spirit.
Thank
Anything
you.
that you would like to share to honor them?
Thank you so much for that question. I don't get asked that very often. And it's such an important part of my book because when I wrote it at the time, that's when the children were being discovered or uncovered, unearthed, I would think. And we had known as Indigenous people that this had happened, and we'd been speaking about it for years and years, but nobody was listening until there was
Mm,
proof, I suppose. So it was a shaky time when that was happening because we'd all been feeling like, well, geez, our voices have really been invisible because nobody's been hearing us. We've been
mm,
shouting about this for so many years. But the spirit of those children, I think that they've been honored. We're at least in so-called Canada now. People know that that's the history and the truth. And there was a day in September now, it's called Truth and Reconciliation Day. And there was this day I was speaking, and that night there was this gorgeous sunset. It was the most beautiful sunset. The sky was like radiant with orange and red and pinks. I've never seen anything like it. And I knew that it was the spirit of those children saying thank you to all of the people that had come and honored them and seen them. And I think my work, part of my purpose in my work is to bring voice and visibility to the invisible, to those who have been marginalized, to those who aren't seen or heard, because there are so many Indigenous people in really northern communities. There's still the impacts of that generational trauma and harm continues, and they are forgotten, or they're blamed or shamed, somehow making it their fault for the fact that colonization and attempted genocide has demolished their spirits. It's a spirit issue. It's a soul issue.
mm,
It's a generational issue. And in that way, I can see how people just say, well, get over it. Why are you not over this? They can't see that the
mm,
impact of that has been buried so deep in our DNA. So I want to give voice to that because we need to see that and we need to presence it and make it visible and valid. it's very valid. So
Mm.
I'm here for that. So thank you for asking me.
Mm, thank you. And could you talk about, well, another powerful part of your book or part of your work? Would you be able to expand a little bit or a lot about your powerful open letter, Dear White Woman Who
Mhm.
Wants to Be Like Me, and your work that constantly invites people to really acknowledge the deeper histories and realities of indigenous people, like what they're facing today. I
Yeah.
feel like it's so important.
Yeah, that letter came about in 2019 and it was on my blog and I didn't really think anybody was going to read it, but it did take a lot of
Mm,
courage to put it out there. But the courage came after it landed because then it went viral. And it's called Dear White Woman Who Wants to Be Like Me. And it was written from a place of love and written from a place
mm-hmm,
of invitation for relationality and reciprocity and understanding. But of course, you never know how words are going to land and you never know what the impact is going to be. So for maybe 50% of the people, it landed and they started to think about it and reflect on it. And then the other half got really angry. So it
mm-hmm,
caused a big disruption in the collective energy. Um, and it was really, that was challenging for me. I wasn't ready for that because I really had intended to write it as an invitation for us to come together. If people know,
mm,
they know that is what my heart is. And that is what my intention is always, to be a
yes.
bridge between Indigenous people and non-Indigenous.
Mm-hmm,
But it really came about because I would feel it in my bones. And if I knew, if I was feeling it in my bones, that people with less resources that I have therapists and healers that can help hold space for me. I knew that if I was feeling that, then the impact on the children who are living way up north, the teenagers who are feeling depressed and down and don't want to be here anymore, then it had to be impacting them at some level. So, how could I bring that voice to the issue so that we could start thinking about it and bringing it forward? It's an issue. I'd say since then, there's been more consciousness around appropriation, and there's still a dismissal of how important it is and how important it is to Indigenous people to honor and respect with reverence.
mm. Thank you for sharing about it. Another question that pops into my mind that I think it's so important to talk about. Well, for people, and I know you are probably asked about it very often, but for people who are not Indigenous but feel a strong resonance with the ceremonies or teachings of Indigenous communities, well, what is your guidance? Do you always encourage people first to begin by exploring their own lineage and ancestral roots? Or is it appropriate for those people to walk alongside Indigenous teachings? And if so, what responsibility comes with that?
Yeah. First, I would say buy my book because I think there's a whole chapter on how to appreciate, not appropriate. And that is
Mm-hmm.
that's a really beautiful guidance, I think, because I poured a lot into that. And I'd say there's a few things that I think. First, I want to say I am not the police, like the police of like whether you're appropriating, because I don't really know. Only Creator knows, or only your ancestors know what your practices are, what your intention is. The
Mm-hmm.
only way I can say is I can feel it in my body when I feel, and it feels like extraction. And extraction is so harmful because as an Indigenous body, it'll make me sick. Like it actually makes me sicker to be extracted from. So this isn't just like a mental thing where it's like you need to get over it or think something different.
Mm-hmm.
It's impacting Indigenous bodies. It's impacting Indigenous lives, like in really deep ways that maybe you don't see because you think it's innocent, or you think, oh well, I can take all these things and use them for profit and it's not harming or
Mm,
hurting anybody. I'll tell you it is. So there's a couple things. Learn the history of the lands that you're on, even know the people that have stewarded those lands. That's a really important first step. Find out that if you're living on Turtle Island, find out the history of the Indigenous people there and what still continues to happen, the impact that's still, as I talked about before, the impact that's still happening in these communities that you might not see or hear about anymore, but is a result of that attempted genocide and erasure. Know that. Ask the medicines if you're meant to work with them, work from a spirit
mm,
level. They'll tell you. They'll tell you how much to use. They'll tell you how to honor them. They'll tell you how to respect them and treat them with care. Give back to Indigenous communities. Like I
mm,
speak about this so much, and people ask, well, how can we do that? And sometimes I'm like, I'm right here. You can buy my book. You can buy my cards. You can gift them to people. Like
Mm-hmm.
that ultimately helps Indigenous communities because you are, that flows forward from me to all of the communities in need, right? So those things are really important. Uplift Indigenous creators. If you are using a lot of Indigenous teachings, who can you uplift? Who's not being seen? And I've been in
Mm,
business for 21 years. I have hustled so hard to get where I'm at. And I can say and see like it's a real life lived experience that an Indigenous voice will not be heard and seen as much as a non-Indigenous voice or a white woman
mm,
in the spiritual space. That is the reality. So can you see that?
mm-hmm.
And then what can you do about it? So those would be some of
Mm-hmm.
the things that I would share. But yes, go back to your own lineage, learn the practices there. And it takes a little bit of work. Like it's not easy, right? People are like, but I don't know. Well, you can find out. I trust that you can
Mm-hmm.
find out instead of grasping at or extracting somebody else's culture.
Mm.
Go within, go within. So yeah, thanks for that question.
Thank you so much. And another thing that like spoke so deeply to me, you talk openly about some of the statements that might be considered as spiritual bypassing
Mm.
statements, like we are all one, life happens for you, not to you. Would you be open to speak about why those messages can be damaging? Because how we can be mindful of like, and how we should be, especially as leaders or spiritual teachers, to be careful of even the words that we're putting out into the world.
Yeah, I think like I don't see color is probably the most harmful. And I think that that one is like really tricky because of course you see color. Like it just seems so ridiculous that you say I don't see color or we all bleed red or whatever those things are. Like if you're not seeing color, then that means you're not seeing the real lived experience of folks who live in a marginalized identity. That is the truth of that is the truth. And I know because I'm a very spiritual person. So I know I see people's spirits first and I see people's soul light and I see people's
Mm-hmm.
medicine. Like I know that understanding. And I also see people's skin color to say, oh yes, you have a different lived experience than I do. And we are all one. I from a spiritual perspective, I understand that too. I really truly do.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to understand the difference between equality and equity. And we don't have the same level of equity. We're not coming from the same starting place. That's just, and even if you say, well, I've had a hard life too, I hear that. But there still are systems in place, real life systems in place that are not allowing the same opportunities for people who of marginalized identities. That is very true. The systems of oppression are still at work very strongly. So I have so much compassion if you've had a hard life and you don't come from a marginalized identity. I have so much compassion for your lived experience. It's not that I'm saying to erase that. Just
Mm-hmm.
see the reality right now of what is.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. So important. Could we talk a little bit, or a lot again, about healing? Because I find it so beautiful, truthful about it's not even the idea that we can even heal intergenerational trauma or
Mhm.
even past life experiences. Uh, I hope that with this conversation, we'll give hope that that you can heal, and of course, it's going to look not the way you have imagined. But can we
Mm.
talk about healing?
Yeah, I think I've come to know healing in a different way than maybe I did in my early 20s when I was really first diagnosed with lupus and trying to heal myself. I think for a very long time, I just turned 48, so it's been 20, oh goodness, like yeah, it's been a long time. It's been 28 years. Well, I was diagnosed when I was 17, so almost 30 years, 31 years, I guess, of walking with this illness in the world. And I think there was this feeling, this internal pressure to heal myself, to cure myself, and that somehow there was something
Mm-hmm.
wrong with me. Like I was broken. I had done something to create this in my body. So
Mm-hmm.
I searched for a cure or healing from a very like the external world's going to fix me. If I just do this cleanse and this detox and this green juice diet and all of these things, that's what's going to heal me. Or if I just change my mindset. And I've come to know that actually what's needed is a surrendering, an acceptance,
Mm-hmm.
um, maybe even like a rooting down into what medicines that this body is bringing me. And for a long time, I also just felt like, well, I want to live like a normal person in the world with this illness. And I
Mm-hmm.
realized, oh no, this illness is actually an invitation to do things differently. And you cannot keep up to this capitalistic colonial structure that's been rooted down. And that's actually just been a really recent experience. So I do believe that healing is possible. And I do believe that that can mean something different for everybody. But if we're chasing something external to ourselves, I think it's going to do a lot of damage to us. So, can you go within and see and unfold into your becoming from within? And what is, maybe if you're living with a chronic illness or a mental health struggle, what is that medicine? What is it bringing you? And how can that unfold for you to be more of who you are? That's the way that I love to see that, a blossoming almost, instead of searching something from outside of yourself. So that's how I see healing now, but it's been very different over the decades of how I've seen things. I've seen things heal within myself, like crippling arthritis where I couldn't walk. Things that I didn't think would heal have healed from beautiful ways. Beautiful homeopathy, especially, has really helped me. And I've seen things stick around that have something to teach me. And you hear that phrase, it doesn't leave you until it teaches you what you need to know. I think there's a certain truth to that. And also maybe it's more, it doesn't leave you until you fully express the medicine of it, or until you fully appreciated the blossoming of what is happening within you. I'm not sure. I like to
Mm-hmm.
say I don't know a lot because I'm a very curious person. And I think that everybody's healing journey is very individual. I'm hoping and praying that I've never been a shaming space for folks in their healing journey, and that I've held space for who they are and where they're at right now. And I believe that there is a healed state for everyone. And I'm not in
Mm-hmm.
control of what that means.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. And I know that you lead with so much softness and with an open heart. And it's been a struggle for me throughout the years. And now I've accepted whom I truly am at a soul level, in terms of like not allowing anything that happened to me to really harden me,
Mm,
to make me change the way I want to present myself in the world. So could you talk a little bit about how we can honor our own emotions, stay
mm,
connected, well, to spirit, to our true selves, and to live and serve authentically, even when others leave, or even when some people might not understand us.
mhm. Yeah, I think the human desire to be understood is so, so powerful. Like, it is rooted inside of us so deeply. And so I understand that because I think we all want to be seen. We all want to be understood. It is survival for us for that to be true. So when somebody doesn't meet us in that way, it can be heartbreaking. So I really love to sit with it, like sit with that, just be with it, like be with the fact that it's really hard when somebody doesn't see you and it's really upsetting. We
Hmm.
can't move it until we accept it. So I love acceptance in that way. I am really big on compassion for self. And I think that when we lose that compassion for self, that's when the shame or the blame starts to enter in. And so that's really how I think we can unwind some of that and come home to accepting where we're at and who we are. A lot of people talk about forgiveness, and I think forgiveness can happen eventually, but I think that we need to sit with what is first. And I think that's really, really important, and make space for it, because there's not a lot of space made. The biggest thing that I can see when I go in to do a healing circle, and I ask people to share, I realize there's no space for people to share their authentic feelings and thoughts. Like, there's very,
Mm.
very rare that people have that sacred space to actually share. And I see that over and over again, that people just, once you give them space, it's like it all comes out like this
Hmm.
whole life worth of stories. So, can you be a safe space for people perhaps to share their vulnerabilities? Can you lead with vulnerability? The way that I
Mm.
see it now, in social media is like we're not really sharing our true selves all the time. The people that I respect the most are the most vulnerable and the most real and the
Mm.
most human. And I think if you can get to that place and know that it's safe to share those parts of you that you might not see as perfect or healed, that is going to be the ones that are going to inspire people. I've seen that over and over again. So I don't know
Mm,
if that answered your question, but I think that vulnerability piece is what I respect the most in people that lead and
thank
people
you.
that, and not like in a share your trauma all the time space, but
Hmm.
more like, this is my human experience. I'm
Hmm.
thriving, succeeding, and I feel nervous sometimes. Like anything, like that duality of life is there for all of us. And I wish more people showed that.
Beautiful, thank you. Could you talk a little bit about, well, spirit animals? I'm curious because spirit animals began showing up for me after I left an abusive relationship, and
Mm,
I was going through a very long um, court case, well, I will call it battle. I didn't invite spirit animals. I was opening up to my like mediumistic abilities, and I started working with the wolf medicine.
mm,
And it wasn't me making up, and
mm,
then wolf really helped me to stay courageous, to be brave, and I would see that wolf in my heart space, and I knew it was real, and I accepted that medicine. But then the logical mind that I tried to ignore throughout the years would then question, like, why are those animals coming, and can I really accept their medicine because I am not
mm,
indigenous and I still want to. Well, I assume that the fact that they started coming, it is that they wanted to give me that medicine, but how can I treat it with, with deep reverence? How can we work with those spirit animals?
mm. I love that wolf came to you. And I've worked with non-Indigenous people for my whole career, and animal spirits have shown up for them. That's the only way that I can say that they are there for you, because I've seen them.
Mm-hmm.
They've been around. And so I think it's available to everyone to have these animal medicine beings around you. We all have access to them. I think it's, again, holding that reverence. We talk about that to Indigenous people. They are our kin, they're our family, they're like our aunts and uncles and grandmothers and grandfathers and children. We love them as such in that way. So perhaps it's just about that. And in my experience, I've seen many people love them just as deeply as Indigenous people do. So I think it's about honoring those animals in that way, and like making an altar for them, putting something under your pillow for them, making an offering on the land for them is a way that you can use them. But I really believe that they are like probably my strongest allies in the spirit world. Those in the ancestral realm, sometimes the angels, but those are the beings that really come around and through me the most. So they're almost like real to me. Like they really show up as like real guardians, and I think as protectors. And they also remind us of the medicine that maybe have been fractured from us or we've forgotten about, and they come back and say, look at, this is who you are. I'm a
Mm,
mirror of who you are. Can you receive some of my medicine? Can you integrate it within your own cells and your own body, and
mm.
then share it with the world? That's the way I see them show up. And I love them. I love them because they've supported me and my clients for so long.
Thank you. Could you talk about your book, You Are the Medicine? What's behind that book? Why did you create? What inspired you to write it?
Yeah, it came directly from spirit. I've worked with moon cycles for a long, long time, and I wanted to share the Ojibwe way of seeing the moon and our moon cycles. It's very connected to the land here, so I wrote it for everyone. And my intention was that it would touch everybody globally, but I didn't know that would actually happen, because I thought, is everyone going to connect to this? And they did. It was a very universal teaching for people. And with each chapter, there's an animal spirit that goes along with the moon that shares their medicine through the moon. So I asked spirit, what animal wants to come in during this time? What animal wants to teach? That's how that really came
Mm,
about in that way. And then they came to life. They seemed to come to life a little bit more after it was written in that way. But I really asked my grandmothers and my ancestors in spirit, how does this want to come through? I'm
mm,
writing a new book right now. I'm currently writing a new book, and it's a very interesting process to write a book, because there's so many helpers on the other side that are coming through,
mm,
and it's a beautiful experience. So it really is a co-creation.
mhm. Thank you. And I couldn't choose one of the chapters to ask you now about. They're all beautiful. I just love
Oh,
your offering. So thank you so much. But now I'm thinking, since we're in June, maybe it would be appropriate for you to talk about the medicine of this current moon and any spirit animal that's connected to Yeah, we're recording this episode
Yeah.
in June.
So June is when the medicine wheel changes from in the northern hemisphere from spring to summer. So we're still kind of in the eagle season, which was spring, which was like plant your seeds, spread your wings, take those leaps of faith. And then the medicine wheel changes for summer. And summer in the full moon's happening next week, and it's Odeum and Gizes, which is strawberry moon. This is when the
Mm.
strawberries come to life and we gather them and we harvest them. Odaemon is the heartberry. So strawberry invites us to come from our hearts. And I really wrote this chapter for community because I believe that healing has to happen collectively. Community care is so vital. It's not an individual process. I think we've individualized healing a little bit too much. We have to think about our communities and how our healing impacts humanity and how we can share that healing with humanity. So the Canada goose was the animal that came into this chapter. And I know not everybody knows what animal that is, but because the Canada goose never leaves anybody behind. So I love
Mm.
this. Like, how can we look at the people that maybe are not being seen and are invisible? And how can we bring them along with us? In the summer season, we have deer medicine. So I always think of June in those two animals, and deer reminds us
Mm-hmm.
to be compassionate. So all that I was talking about, like non-shaming, self-love, self-care, deep compassion for self so that we can unwind some of that inner critic energy. So those are the two animals at this time that I feel like are working through us. But that strawberry, that odaemon, that heartberry, it asks us, what cracks your heart open? What breaks your heart? Because whatever breaks our heart, I think leads us to how we're supposed to offer our medicine in the world.
Mm. Thank you. I would also love to ask you, because it's something that I've experienced as a mother
Mm.
and as a woman. And I remember, like, we all have our own stories of healing, and it took me years to where I am to be able to feel unashamed, to use my voice, to be okay
Mm.
with being seen. And I remember vividly that I started doing things initially for my children because I knew I would help them, but also I could feel the presence of my grandparents. I could feel the presence of my ancestors. They were there. So then I knew that I was doing it. Even now, I'm feeling my throat chakra like getting
Mm.
restricted. I knew that by me being authentic, by me stepping into my power and doing things that they weren't able to do it, but they facilitated. And then me, whatever I would do in this lifetime, I'm doing it for my children and for the generations ahead. That allowed me to quieten my ego and to step into my power, purpose. So would you be able to expand about that?
Yeah. My children, my children are such beautiful beings. I have two boys, and they're both really intuitive in their own ways, sensitive in
Mm.
their own ways. And an astrologer, I wrote this in my book. An astrologer told me, if you don't live out your purpose, then your eldest son won't, because it's stacked. It's directly stacked. Like he's watching.
Mm.
And so I think about that a lot because I do travel a lot. I do share my medicine a lot in different ways, and I'm away from them a lot. And I have been, especially the
Mm.
last couple of years. And that can be hard because they're still little. And there's this part of me that feels a bit guilty, but there's also this part of me that knows that their medicine in the world is really reliant on mine. So that's the way that I see our medicines intertwining. And yeah, they know a lot about, like, they're so proud of their Indigenous identity. They don't carry
Mm.
any of the shame that I carried as a young girl. It's totally healed. Like, it's like I feel like whatever work I've
Mm.
done, they feel so proud and they just feel so
Mm.
excited about being Indigenous, and they know our practices, and they know what to do if they were feeling anxious or if they were feeling anything, they know how to heal. So I'm grateful for that. And that's really just from learning, from living with me, I think, right? Like, it's not something that directly say, okay, step 1, step 2, step 3,
Mm-hmm.
something that we do. But I really feel like they are part of the 7th generation that is going to leave behind a better earth and a better world. I think that generation is the generation that's going to change things in really big ways. So I just hope I can nurture them in a way where they believe in themselves, that they can do it.
Mm, I love it. And I know you will have a deeper understanding or you'll be able to speak to it, but something that has just popped into my mind because I know you use homeopathy in your life, but I use homeopathy before I got pregnant with my first child, while I was pregnant, and then to support Anthony throughout when he was a baby and a toddler, and it did work. And of course there were so many skeptics telling me that they were
Mhm.
like sugar pills, and I'm like, I don't really mind how it works, I just knew it worked. And I knew, and I know you'll understand it, by me healing certain emotional roots, certain pains through my own work, when my children were already here on earth, I was healing them, and
Mhm.
their medical state improved as well.
Mhm.
So would you be able to talk about that, uh, how
Wow.
connected we are, because it's so potent, so important.
Yeah, I've seen that many times, like really with regards to like myself, my mother, and my grandmother. I see that generational healing almost has happened up, backwards. I can see it forwards as well, but there's something really strong with like when something is shifted within me, then it's shifted within my mother, and then something. I can't remember the example that I had, but I
Mm-hmm.
remember when my grandmother, something shifted with her. So that lineage work is really important, and homeopathy is so beautiful to do that because it's energy medicine. So, of course, an
Mm-hmm.
energetic imprint and shift in your cells is going to vibrate out to those in your home, and then of course into your lineage. I really highly believe that homeopathy is I know people, I use the word magical and not in a way where it's like it's just magic, but it really has done so many things over my lifetime where I can't describe it in any other way. So yeah, the healing work you do absolutely impacts the 7 generations coming underneath you, behind you, and in front of you. And I think like if we think about it that way, just think about like that's why it's so important to do your own inner work and your own inner
Yes.
healing, because it cracks open and leaves more capacity and expands like a bigger, wider range of healing for your children, which I think is really beautiful. And we haven't all experienced that. We haven't had that offered to us. So yeah, it's important to offer that to our children.
Mm, thank you so much. And I know before we started recording this episode, you mentioned that you would kindly be willing to pull a card from your oracle deck, the Sacred Medicine
Yeah.
Oracle.
Well, actually, this
If
is my
it's
Animal Elders Oracle. So this is
you've
my
got
second,
okay,
yeah, my second
okay,
Oracle deck. So this one is the Animal Elders Oracle.
okay.
And this one is the Animal
Thank
Spirit
you.
one. So I'm actually going to do a 3 card pull. So for all
Thank
who are
you.
listening and all who are on here, we're going to ask, what is the animal medicine most needed right now? What is here to remind you of who you are as you're coming home to yourself and your beautiful medicine in the world? Okay, so this month, so this is June, we have the deer. I love that we got the deer because I talked about that. So
Yes.
this one says soften with love. And deer medicine, of course, is that deep compassion for self. So it, as summer comes, this is reminding you it's a time of nourishment. It's a time of, if you're dreaming something into being, you can pour the water and the sunlight and everything into it as it manifests in the world. But please be kind to yourself. And please, anytime you hear that inner critic saying, who do you think you are? You're not worthy. Deer says, yes, you are. Come back to that truth. You are so worthy of doing this. The second one is the orca. So we have elder orca, which is tend to your village, but orcas breaching out of the water, and they're huge animals. So they're reminding you, you have this great medicine to share and you have the power to lift it up and out. But your village is really important. So the people around you, there might be collaborations. There might be important people that are coming into your life, and make sure you tend to them. Be grateful. Be grateful for their coming in before they even come in. Your village is
Mm,
really important for your dreams. And then we have the bison. So, whatever you're dreaming into being, there is abundance surrounding you. This is open to increased abundance, abundance of love, joy, wealth, opportunities, all the beautiful things, they are coming in for you. So, elder bison is leading the way in June. So, I'd say that's a pretty beautiful forecast. We have the deer and orca, and then the bison.
thank you so much. And
Yeah.
then lastly, what is your vision moving forward? What do you most want to see for your community, for your children, and for the world we are shaping together?
Oh goodness. I think right now pretty shaky. Things are pretty shaky right now. So I think um hmm, It sounds so simple, but I really wish for a kinder world. I wish for a kinder world. And every morning I say to my boys when they leave the world, be kind. That's all I care about is be kind, please. Like, look for the kids who don't have friends and aren't included. Look for maybe somebody who's sad and can you cheer them up a little bit? Like, can we be kinder? Because I think that we need that more than anything. And if we can come from that first and foremost, and I think that there'd be healing that would happen in this world. I dream of a world that where we really truly see one another, like really truly see one another. So it might sound simple, but that's what I dream of.
Thank you. And then, would you be able to share how people can work with you and where they can find you? And of course, I'm going to add all of those links to the description of this podcast.
Yeah, so I have my final season of ceremony, which I'm moving through the moons in my book. We actually do the ceremony in person, so we're doing that. There's one more season left. It's my final season, and then I'm closing it down for the summer. It's open right now, and that's at ashafrost.com. And then you can follow me at Asha Frost on Instagram. It's asha.frost.
Oh, I can't hear you. You're on mute. Oh, again, on mute. Oh, I think spirit's interfering. This happens
There we
often.
go.
You're
Yeah,
back.
that's so
You're back.
strange. If you are interested in learning from Indigenous teachings from an Indigenous person that you can use in a good way, I have 2 decks in my book, and I highly recommend that. That's an intro to that.
Asha, thank you so much for this sacred conversation. I feel so honored, moved, and grounded. I really appreciate your presence, and I'm sure listeners are going to learn so much from your wisdom, but from your beautiful heart. Thank you
Oh,
so much.
thank you for having me, Marta.
Thank you. Goodbye, everyone. Thank you. Bye bye.